So here we go, guys. We are here together to cover, inshallah, a very, I feel it's going to be an important, someone might say, how can you compare Khabib to Malcolm X? I'm not comparing anyone to anyone. What I'm here today to do is basically the following. We have a lot of contemporary figures in our lives who have been amazing and excellent on multiple capacities. And the mistake that we make sometimes is if the person is not perfect, then what do we say? Like, oh, I can't take a lesson from that person. Tell me who's perfect. Only the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam were saved from sinning. And on top of that, tell me who's perfect, which person amongst us is not sin? All of us sin. كُلُّ بَنِي آدَمْ خَطَّاء وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. So if we're looking at someone who's not going to sin, we can only speak about prophets. Now, the issue with that is that while the prophets are perfect and they don't sin, some people then say, well, they don't live in our lives, which I don't necessarily like that idea, because of course they don't live in our lives, but they're the best examples for all of humanity, for all of time. But some people want to hear that, okay, we've heard about the prophets, and we've heard about the companions. We have not heard about others that, have just as much have an influence in our lives, but are not, they're not from the earlier generations. And so this is why we've set up this particular book club / halaqah / just hangout, is because when we're here, we have the opportunity to read about and speak about people who live, okay, there we go. I'm just pulling the book up. Who have lived in our lives, who have either, we saw or our parents saw, and we can take a lot of beneficial lessons from them. And from those individuals are Khabib Nurmagomedov, or is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, I'm going to say something right away. Immediately I was asked, because for some reason this program received a lot more attention than Malcolm X program did. I don't know why. The Malcolm X program, it was sent out, but a lot of people, oh man, this program on Khabib. Yeah, there is. It's like there's a program on Malcolm X, guys. But I think it's because he's a contemporary figure. I mean, he's older than you, younger than me, so he falls in this category of people who are our age. And we've seen some of his successes. So I'm going to start off with a couple quick things. Point number one, I don't agree with, nor do I support everything he does. I'm not saying what he does is wrong, but I don't agree with nor support everything he does. So from the outset, I want you to know that everything he's done in his life is not something I'm going to say is perfect. But we can learn lessons from people's mistakes and from their good acts. Secondly, even though he may have made mistakes, I definitely find him to be a person who I find a lot of goodness within him. And not only do I find that, others have found goodness within him as well. His compassion to those who are not only underprivileged, but just people in need is definitely something that's noteworthy. His respect and love for his parents, definitely noteworthy. His disconnect to wealth, it's noteworthy. His pride for Islam, it's noteworthy. His love for the Prophet ﷺ, that one press conference where he says, my name is Habib Nur Muhammad. Khabib Nurmagomedov is Habib Nur Muhammad. And he said it clearly for everyone to hear. Because Habib is a nickname of the Prophet ﷺ. Nur, there's two positions. Nur is Nurullah, the light of Allah, or Nur of Muhammad ﷺ, meaning the light that's reflected from Allah's guidance off the Prophet ﷺ to mankind. And then Muhammad is Muhammad ﷺ. And so he's very staunch about that. And then, so there's a lot of things from his life that we can see and say, yeah, you know what, I want to bring those things into my life. The third thing is that we find him to be an individual who wants to propagate deen. Just most recently, if anyone follows him online, not follows him is subscribed to his social media, but anyone follows him in the media, sees what happens, he's in the news lately. Anyone know why? Because he has his own organization, and they don't employ what's called ring girls. These women who walk around in boxing match or combat sports with signs that show you what round it is. And but they're not dressed properly, and so when he employed them, he doesn't employ them, and he says that it's inappropriate, and he actually called them the most useless parts of mixed martial arts. He didn't say they were useless themselves. He So that act is useless because everyone can see the round by looking at the screen, or you could have it posted somewhere. And people have fallen on both sides of the coin. Many non-Muslim men have said he's absolutely right. They said, though we enjoy it, he's right. And some non-Muslim men have said that no, this is not aware, this is not appropriate, and they do have a place. And some of the women have spoken out. Some of the there's a commentator who's a female, and she said, look, you have to respect where he's coming from. He doesn't want to have women, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not idealized, but like made into sort of an icon of viewing for like a guy's pleasure. And from his background, this is how they believe it should be in Dagestan. There's a Russian boxer who came out and said, don't bring your Dagestani sexist ways here to America. But he's not. He even said in the interview, you can do what you want to do. My company will not have it. Fedor, who's a very famous Hall of Fame combat sport participant athlete, he said that, look, they have a place, but they should be dressed decently. So even the non-Muslim said that Khabib has a point. You can still employ them to walk around, but don't have them dressed the way they're dressed. And so, my point is that, look, for a person, people never want negative media. But he is willing to sacrifice some popularity with mainstream followers of this sport for the sake of propagating what's true. So there's a lot of good that we can take from it. And the good is for men and women alike. The lessons we're going to learn over here is not only for men, it's also for women. Because what happens is that he is just like Malcolm X. It wasn't just for men. We didn't just learn how men should behave. We learned how women should behave. He gave us Muslim lessons. He gave us Muslim lessons and human lessons. And that's what we're going to take from Khabib. Having said that, I want to begin by asking all of you, what do you all know about Khabib? So because it's the new session again, when you speak, first mention your name. You can even say something about yourself, like where you're from, or your age, or something about yourself, and then go ahead and give me your response. And I'm not going to call on all of you, I'm just calling some of you. What do you know about Khabib? Or what personal connection do you have to Khabib? Anyone? Yes? Do I have to go by Sayyid or Amanullah? Aman, okay. I mean, I know you from when you're little, but not everyone here does, yeah. Your hobbies are? Oh, really? Building go-karts. We should have you do like a program here on the weekend to show us how to build go-karts. I'm serious. It'd be really cool. Can you imagine if we say no cars out in the parking lot, we park all in the streets, we come in, and you show us how to build go-karts, and we can like race them around here. Then I can win and say it in your face. That'd be awesome. Anyway, go ahead, continue. Nice. So you follow him on something. Okay, good. Excellent. Anyone else? Yes.
I knew my name is Hisham.
Your name is Hisham, okay.
I knew he had like a close relation with his father.
You knew he had a close relationship with his father, good.
Like when he passed away, he was winning fights for him, like his fight after his father's death. He said it was for him and in dedication of his father. So.
Excellent. And that, interestingly enough, that chapter is not present over here in this particular book. This stops pretty much the Conor fight. But we're going to add on because there is a fight that's very important, the Poirier fight, because his father is the first one he gets to see, then the Gaethje fight where his father passes away. So we're going to add that. One thing about yourself.
One thing about myself?
Yes.
I'm in high school right now.
You're in high school right now, where?
Glenbardies.
By the way, as you guys are speaking, I'm not paying attention, I'm just pulling the book up. So as I'm looking down pressing things, I'm just pulling the book up. I had it on my laptop, but my laptop's not connected to the internet over here, so I realized I'm just trying to get it over here. Okay, who's next? Your hand was up, right? Well, someone's hand was up here in the middle. Is it yours? Okay, what's your name? Rashad, go ahead.
One thing about me is I used to live in Milwaukee.
All right, you used to live in Milwaukee Munawwara. Go ahead.
One thing I know about him is that I know he was he's openly kind of open about his beliefs and his opinions, often aligned with Islam.
Okay, good. He's very open about his beliefs and they align with what Islam teaches. Anyone else? One more person? No one? No one? Going once, going twice, going 3 times, going 4 times. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, and there's this whole like articles and clips about that too, how he won't shake. Yeah, he doesn't drink, etc. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, yes, is hitting in the face haram Islamically? Yes, it is. We can't support that. We can't say it's okay to strike someone in the face. But do we just say like now everything is useless that he's doing? No, man, you have a guy who's in the middle of a press conference and he's lowering his gaze to the interviewer who happens to be female, but still treating her with dignity and respect. That's a big deal. And so these are lessons we're going to take from him, inshallah. For me, I got interested in Khabib Nurmagomedov because of the fact that one of the speakers, the Muslim speakers I like to listen to online, he was giving a speech about him, and I was like, oh, well, who is this person? And then I began to research him, and I began to follow him a little. Not follow him like on social media, but just like beginning to find things online about him. And I was really impressed by a lot of the things that he would do and say. And so I was like, man, this guy's a really good, can you grab that? I was like, this guy's, I feel to be a really good Muslim. I'm gonna, try to keep up with him. And I did a lot of research about him, and I'm like, this is something that we can all benefit from. One of my teachers, Mufti Hussein Kamani, he met Khabib. They went out for like coffee together or something, so he was telling me about it. One of my students from the school in which I teach, Muhammad, who's from Dagestan, he was like, yeah, Khabib, we're from the same village. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's like, I haven't really met him, but I would see him around. I'm like, oh man, that's pretty awesome. He's like a freshman in high school. But I enjoy jiu-jitsu and like kickboxing and stuff like that. And so like I feel very inclined towards him as a person. Okay. Now, let's also begin by the following. How many of you have noticed Islam practiced differently? Not generally. It's not like, okay, here they pray 2 times a day, and there they pray 4 times a day, and there 6 times a day in some places. No. Some differences in different areas of culture, of cultural differences. Maybe Islam is practiced slightly different in Saudi Arabia versus Islam practiced in India versus Pakistan versus Chechnya, etc. Anyone notice any differences? Anyone travel or know people from different areas? No? No one noticed anything? Come on, guys. Can't believe that. Yes, what's your name? What is it? I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. Amr? How do you spell it? Okay, so it's Amr. Okay, I wasn't sure if it's Amr or Amr. Okay, so with the vowel there, so Amr. Amr, where are you from? Oh, in this area, where are you from? Carol Stream, cool, awesome. So Amr, how old are you? 15. Where do you go to school? Bartlett High School. Nice. Do you play any sports? Swimming, nice. Okay, cool. That's awesome. It's a sunnah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, go ahead.
So I normally see adhan playing in other countries, adhan is actually played loudly.
Yes. So for example, there's this culture of adhan that's sort of very, very different in different areas. They have different styles, played loudly in Muslim countries, etc. Awesome. Anyone else notice any differences in Muslim countries? Yes, go ahead. Yes. Well, inshallah, it still is. Although there are other Muslim countries, when you hear the adhan, they don't close the shop. So, although you should, but you see Saudi, I have not been there for a very long time, but at least used to be very strict on making sure things close down. One of the things I noticed, and I have not traveled much in the Muslim world, but from my limited travels in the Muslim world, but my interaction with people from different places, is that a lot of what they practice is based upon practicality. I'm going to explain this for a moment. Anyone here Bengali? Rashadi Bengali, right? No, okay. Okay, so if you meet someone who's Bengali, a lot of their food comes from what source? Yeah, from water, from fish. We even make some of our friends with that. Fish, right? In the Hanafi madhab, according to one opinion, it's from hadith as well, there are certain types of animals or things from the water, namely shrimp, it's makruh. I'm not saying you can't eat it. There's one opinion. From that same school of thought, there's another opinion that says it's absolutely okay. So when the scholars sort of delve into it, they notice that the scholars who live away from coastal regions, they live inland, they live away from the waters, they say you're not supposed to eat it. But the scholars who live around water, they say no, it's absolutely fine. Now, they've studied the same hadith, they study the same Quran, etc., but their understanding of it, and there's a very nuanced discussion I'm not going to get into, their understanding of it is based upon where they live. The people who happen to live in an area where, what's the word I'm looking for, where they're surrounded by water, they say it's okay to eat it. Now, we come to us. Over here, how many of you say you can eat shrimp? It's absolutely fine. How many of you say you can't eat shrimp? It's not something that's preferred? I'm the only one? Okay, so I happen to be, okay, a couple of us. Here it's a little weird because we're not really in coastal regions, but things are shipped around easily. America's a bad example, but if you go overseas, there's a lot of debate about these things. The point I'm trying to make is that your region sometimes takes those areas that might be a little gray, and it responds to it differently. Now let's go to Dagestan for a moment, okay? Dagestan is in what region? Caucasus. Where would that be? South America, North America?
Western Russia.
Oh, good. So we're going to Russia. So not even Americas at all, right? Just calling them out. Yeah, so over there, is it more, you have comfort and you have wealth and then there's a lot of commerce, or is it a little more, is the style of life a little more rough? I've had classmates who are from Dagestan. It's not as easy to live with there. It's mountainous regions, you actually grow up in the mountains. They began to bring people sort of down towards the valleys where there's some farming opportunities because it became so difficult to live in the mountains. That's like chapter 2. We'll go into that later, okay? So over there, they also had a lot of military expeditions. People have tried to attack. Non-Muslims and Muslims have tried to attack that region. So when you try to attack a region, does everyone say, oh, you know what, Islam means peace, we'll just lay down, you come in, you take our region, no problem? Or do you defend yourself? What do you think? If someone's attacking your village, do you defend it or do you say, oh, no problem, come take it? You defend, right? Come on, guys, it's a simple question. Did America, anyway, we can go to the founding of America, but the idea is you defend yourself. Now, people who defend themselves, are they more inclined to be to know martial arts, to know how to fire weapons, etc., or people who don't have to defend themselves? Who's more involved in this? People who? I couldn't hear you guys. Yeah, if you have to defend yourself, you'll know how to use weapons, you know martial arts, etc. Those regions, when it comes to the area of fighting and striking, maybe even hitting in the face, etc., do you think that they interpret the hadith a little differently? Here, let me give one simple example. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke to us about not reading Quran quickly, meaning like you can't read Quran in less than 3 days. That's a hadith, right? Or the meaning of it is a hadith. Do people after knowing that hadith still read Quran in less than 3 days? Yes, even Uthman radiallahu anhu used to. Because there's amr or nahi al-ibaha or lil-istihbab or lil-ibaha. Sometimes the Prophet commanded or prohibited something out of recommendation. Sometimes he did so. Did anyone not sign this yet? The Prophet ﷺ did not permit something sometimes out of it being completely impermissible. Sometimes he would say, don't do this, but it was a recommendation. But sometimes he would say, don't do this, and it would be an actual command. Sometimes he'd say, do this, it's a recommendation. Sometimes he'd say, do this, and be a command. So some scholars say that, look, this whole striking in the face thing, those who live in regions where you have to sort of fight more, because there's more defense that's necessary, because they've been attacked, they're a little more lenient on that whole discussion about striking in the face. And so I'm beginning with this because I want all of us, when we deal with Muslims, not to jump to the conclusion of judging people right away. Some people will have beards down to their feet. They're tripping on it. Some people will be clean shaven. right? I had a chance to travel to Turkey this past summer. My wife had to go for work, so I went with her. And there were imams of the masjid there my beard was much longer than theirs. But does that make them any less of a person or less righteous or less pious? No. They happen to potentially follow opinion about the beard that's different than my opinion. We don't look down upon someone just because of the fact that they have a certain practice, because we don't know what their defense of that practice is. There's one person about Khabib in particular said, well, astaghfirullah, he exposes his aura. He exposes like what has to be covered. And I was like, actually, his region is Shafi'i. And in the Shafi'i madhab, you don't have to cover your navel. You can expose the navel, and his shorts usually cover his knee. So as a result, he's not actually violating from his opinion. But if people don't know that, they're going to jump to conclusions to judge right away. And one of the purposes of covering this text is we're going to cover someone who's from a different cultural background. Malcolm X, different cultural, ethnic background. He's African American. We spoke about this early on. Remember we spoke about like if I were to ask you, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you born? Glendale Heights. Awesome. Ooh, homecoming. There we go. Then, where are your parents from? Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll forgive that and overlook that, inshallah. And then, where are their parents from? Hyderabad. Oh, okay. So back to goodness. Okay, got it. And then, where are their parents from? It might be going too far, but so you would identify yourself as what? Indian, Pakistani. Stuff I say Muslim, man. So, you would identify yourself with that, right? With that description, like Pakistani American, etc. And that identification of being Pakistani American is based on the fact of where your parents are from. And then when we spoke about African Americans, what's an African American? Who remembers? Why is a Somali American not? This is from the Malcolm X discussion. Why is a Somali American or a Nigerian American or a Sudanese American not considered African American? Who remembers? Testing you guys now. Yes.
I don't know the specific reason, but African.
Wait. What's your name? Maaz. And tell me something about yourself. Okay, so Maaz doesn't know what to say. Yet he's answering a question. Go for it.
Like African Americans were like here from like the 1600s, 1700s. So their ethnicity is like unknown because they've basically become. They've lost their identity, while Nigerian Americans and Somali Americans still know their identity because...
Very good. Very good. Can you repeat that once more for everyone to hear?
African Americans lost their identity when they were deported as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
So they all just mixed together and formed whatever. And then Nigerian Americans and Somali Americans are immigrants, so they still know, and they still have their identity remaining.
Excellent. Not the entire issue, but one of the issues that comes with African Americans is the fact that they were brought here, and because they were torn away from their lands, many of them do not know what their heritage is. They just know they're from Africa. So the African American culture actually brings together many elements of different regions, Senegal, Mali, different regions that we don't know where they're from because they themselves can't trace their back anymore. So they have to develop a new culture over here. We can never understand how it feels, those of us sitting here today, because I think all of us know some of our heritage. So for us to make a blanket statement and say, well, I'm not going to be stereotypical, I'm going to say what people say, well, why do you speak like that? Well, because that's what the heritage that they created now, in the absence of a heritage they used to have, promotes. Why do you dress like that? Well, just because our heritage promoted something else. We'll see an African American dress some way, oh, that's not Islamic. Oh, nothing's haram with it. Then we'll wear shalwar qameez and this is Islamic. Why is it Islamic? Did the Prophet wear shalwar qameez? It's our cultural representation of what we consider to be Islam. Just like an Arab will wear a thobe that's different than a Moroccan thobe, etc. Arab meaning someone from the Hijaz. So one of the things that we learn from here is that we're going to see Khabib's upbringing. And his upbringing was completely, was affected by the wars back home, the way they had to defend themselves, their difficult terrain in life they had to live, the madhab they followed, all those things that the tasawwuf that was very well within when I covered that as well, within the communities, that makes him who he is. So anyway, that's a bit of a background, and we're going to begin. We're not going to go into chapter 1 today. So by the way, unlike Malcolm X's autobiography, I'm going to actually expect everyone to do their best and read along with me the chapters, so that I'm just not speaking about the book, everyone else actually was able to keep up with the reading. I believe it's free online, or there's a nominal fee. I realized later that I have like Amazon Prime, and so it might just be free for me, but not free for others. But I think it's, sorry? Okay, yeah, so anyone, the link is available for the book, and I want people to go ahead and read the book, okay? Why is it not letting me sign in? I mean, I have the internet, but it's just saying that my password is wrong. No, your password is wrong. What's my Amazon sign in? Not now. Okay, here we go. Finally, alhamdulillah. Okay, or alhamdulillah, right? Not just alhamdulillah. So we begin. Now the prologue or the introduction is interesting. And the reason why it's interesting is because it actually begins with different letters. Different individuals actually begin by commenting on Khabib, and I want to show you what they've had to say. This includes his coach, this includes his manager, so it's not only Muslims but not Muslims as well. In the opinion of people, why it should not drive us, it should not be the reason why we act, it's also a good indicator of how people view us and how we're sort of doing in life. So we have Javier Mendez, one of his coaches, is going to have a blurb over here. DC Daniel Cormier, one of his coaches slash colleagues, is going to have a blurb over here. Of course, my computer, it happens to be freezing right now. Why are you freezing? Should have downloaded the book, so I just left it on the internet. There we go. Okay. Now, so because I want you to hear some of the things that they have to say about him once it starts working. Site can't be reached. Why can't it be reached? And I know it works because I was just literally teaching, we're further ahead in my online book club. We're further ahead, but we were covering this book earlier today in the morning. Bismillah. Reconnect. Oh, it kicked me off. Try it over here. There we go. There we go. Oh, now it's working. When I put it in over here. Okay, who called the jinn over here to mess around with my stuff? At least tell me in advance. Okay, well, I'm not going to hold up the class because it's not loading all of a sudden. Okay, yeah, let's just start from here. All right, so Khabib time. That's chapter 1. Let's go right before chapter 1. Okay.
That's the title of the book.
Khabib time, yes. Khab. Yeah, so the organization, the program name is based upon the actual book title. Okay, so he begins the preface. With gratitude to Allah, so alhamdulillah, the Almighty, for all that I have been given in life, I would like to dedicate this book to my dear parents and all those people who have traversed with me the long and thorny path from the high mountain village of Sindhi to the summits of championship. Okay, so now it begins. Father, I'll tell you when you are tired, now get to work. It's such a great quote. I'll tell you when you are tired, now get to work. The first blurb is actually from his father. And his father, Allah yarhamhu, has passed away by now. He passed away about a year ago. And it actually begins with what he has to say. And what's awesome about this is because any of us who have fathers who are still alive, we know that your father can be your toughest critic. Your father can be your best friend, but could also be your toughest critic. So when he has some glowing review to say, you know that there's something strong behind this. So he says, addressing every person who holds this book, I would like to thank him. First of all, I'd like to thank him for the attention he has given to our family and onto the path that we have traveled. All my life, I have tried to be useful to the people with whom I love, and you'll see that in the book. This is why I became involved with children in their sports education. No matter how difficult it may have been, I was doing what I loved. The successes and achievements of my pupils became inspiration for me to move forward. My son, Khabib, was one of thousands of ordinary children who chose sport as a basis of their life. I tried my best to guide him along this thorny path. In all that my son did, I saw an aspiration, irrepressible thirst for victory and achievement. I admired this, and so put more and more effort into working with him. However, nothing would have happened if not through the will of Khabib himself. He trained not only for himself, but also showed others how one should train. Khabib was a stubborn person. He doesn't mean this in a bad way. And so I had to be a dictator to him, both within the family and in sport. He always dreamed of great fights, doubling and tripling his efforts after winning the next duel or tournament. I supported him, trying as his father to warn against haste and mistakes. The question, who is Khabib to me, son or sportsman, remains open. I leave the search for an answer to you, the reader of this book. Aim for your dream and do not even think of retreating. Rely on the will of the Lord in everything you do. And he's his first coach. And what's pretty awesome about Khabib that you'll see in the very beginning is that his relationship with his father. This is going to be completely relevant for all of us because all of us are children, be it if our parents are alive or they're no longer alive, but it's his relationship and his connection to his father. Now, that was his father. We go to Javier Mendez, his coach. Now, his coach, who's not Muslim, has many, many wonderful things to say. I met Khabib in 2012 when he came to my gym to prepare for his second fight in the UFC. His incredible intensity and style of wrestling immediately attracted my attention. It did not matter who his opponent was. In any situation, he found a way to lay his opponent on his shoulder blades and transfer to the ground fighting and to continue wrestling there where he is a master of his craft. Even that first day I thought, what strength there is in this guy. And one thing about his coach, has a lot of respect for Muslims. Has a ton of respect. He's not Muslim himself, but the way he sees them honor their elders, the way he sees them honor their guests. In fact, he loves to go to Dagestan. Like the way they treat me, like he says, and like their guests, it is something that they find to be a personal honor. And one of the things that I want us to recognize from is what? The same thing we spoke about during Malcolm X. You never know who's watching. Remember the one the chapter called Laura? You never know how you're going to affect someone. Same thing over here. Javier Mendez has many, many fighters under him. But this one fighter changed his perception not only of fighting, but of Islam completely. It changed his perception completely by virtue of the fact that how Khabib and they dealt with him, how they interacted with him. Then he said, Khabib was then training without a helmet and sometimes even without a mouth guard. To this day, he wears the same Eternal brand helmet that I gave him. However, he no longer trains without protection because he says that this is simply unprofessional. You know what's really beautiful about this? And you can see this on YouTube online. Khabib's headgear is really old. It's falling apart old. He's constantly taping it back together. So in one clip, he's taping it together. And so his coach begins to tell him, you should just get a new, and he's taping him while saying this, you should just go ahead and get a new headgear. He's like, Coach, never. I never sell this for $1 million. And his coach says, why? He said, because you gave it to me. Khabib, one thing that everyone loved about him was his devotion and his, we call it like wafa. What's a good way to translate wafa? Devotion, your dedication, yeah, you have a good translation of wafa, but someone who sticks with you even through the tough times because what you did for that person. So that was something that even now he's a multi-millionaire, without exaggeration, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, Khabib. That's his life. But so the wafa he has for everyone who helped him, all the people training under him, they mentioned themselves that what do? He actually pays our way through so we can compete. Because he felt that the community gave to him when he was younger, he has to return the favor. Not because they're forcing him, but he feels that. And even Coach Mendez, he mentions that about Khabib, that I found no one to have this type of devotion, wafa. He didn't say wafa, I'm saying wafa, like Khabib. Then he mentions a really interesting story, and this is something important, we're going to cover it later. When I used to say to him, get some rest, for some reason, he began wrestling again even harder. So he would say, like they would be wrestling in practice, he'd say, get some rest. So he would wrestle harder. So get some rest, calm down. He'd wrestle even harder. When Khabib had mastered his English just a year later, he explained to me that the command, get some rest, was perceived by him as an order to intensify the fray. So he would hear, get some rest, and he would think his coach is saying, try harder, try harder. And people did not understand, where is this strength? This guy is that tired, and his strength is coming out. And one of the things we'll learn in the first 2 chapters is the way he was brought up brought that to him. That he had this ability that not many other people had because of how he was brought up. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about, how we're being raised and how we should raise ourselves. Khabib was very modest when he arrived in 2012 and still remains so today. Now that everything has changed, he's become a superstar. His love for his family and his faith is indestructible. This book of his tells of the life of a man whose will and perseverance shows us how all of us, God's children, this is again, that's a Christian perspective, not Khabib's perspective, can live a happy life no matter who we are. You would think millions of dollars later he changed. Every commentator says, you go back, he's still driving a pickup truck. Not like some crazy Mercedes, etc. Nothing wrong with that. But he's just driving his own, because he just doesn't change. In my opinion, Khabib is the best, and not because of what he accomplishes in the ring, but how he behaves outside it and how he treats other people. This is a non-Muslim. Coach has now known him for almost 10 years, 9 years, whose life has been transformed, by virtue of meeting this young man, who now he's 32, I believe, 32 or 33. So we met him 9-10 years ago. He was only 22, 23, 24, around that age. And then the last 2 belong to his manager and his friend/colleague. We'll cover that next week because it's getting to be Adhan time right now. But so for next week, complete reading chapter 1. Read the prologue, those letters, and read chapter 1. And inshallah, we shall meet next week. Are we going to meet at 12 or at 12:30? Yeah. Perfect. So what we did last time with the Malcolm X series is that we asked if students wanted to come at 12. We'd play. We'd play football. We played basketball. I mean, I played in one. You guys just sort of watched as I did that. But we played different sports outside. Truth hurts, doesn't it? We played different sports outside, and we had fun till about 12:30, 12:35ish, and we came in and we began to play. We also had arrangement downstairs for the sisters, like table tennis and things like that as well. So, a show of hands. If we open that back up this week, and those of you online who might be intending to come next week, you can also respond through the MSI portal. What's the number for it? Oh, okay, 630-318-0191. You can message this if you're planning on coming. But if we had like a sport before we have the talk at 12:30, 12:35ish, how many of you would come? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A half hand, like only one of your legs will be playing, not the other. 6. You guys aren't playing? You guys would come last time. That's what I'm asking. Maybe. Let's see if your wife lets you. Okay, got it. Okay, about 6-7 people. So maybe for a week or so we'll try it. If there's not numbers, then we'll just stick only to the halaqah, inshallah. So next week we'll aim to be here at 12. Sometimes I get here at 12:05 because I have another class I teach right before I come here. So if that goes over, I'm a little late. We'll aim for 12 in the parking lot, inshallah. For the sisters that come, we'll have the downstairs facility open, so you have different activities as well. Someone online has said, is that Fahim? And then we'll try that for a couple weeks. If it doesn't work out, if people just aren't coming, then we'll keep it only at 12:30 for the talk itself. Cool? Inshallah, we'll stop over here. It's time for Adhan. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahum bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruk wa natubu ilayk, wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Yes.